Hi, everybody. After reading all of your posts for the first discussion, there are a few clarifications I want to make, and I hope you'll have time to look at this and make sure that you fix anything that you did not do correctly. And we still have until Monday, so I'm going to be a little more relaxed since this is week one. But one thing that I noticed was that the note cards were, many of them were not done correctly, were not done according to what the tutorial said. So I just want to quickly run through some of the stuff that was on the tutorial and let you see what I was hoping for. First of all, you need 5 cards, and the key thing is they need to be from our chapter. So they need to come from chapter 6. Don't just redo the ones that were already up there. I got several that were related to the classical conditioning. We don't cover that until the end of the semester, so I really want this to be applicable right now. So please use terms from the text that you've already read. The second thing is you could have two different kinds of cards. You could have a definition card or example cards. So I want to go through what those were again and show you what I was looking for. If you're using a definition card, on the back of the card, you'll have the text definition. So you'll just copy basically and paste. This is the first step. So this is helping you to understand the basic definition. You have to have that before you can move in and apply or give examples of a concept. So this is your first level of understanding has to be there or you can't go any deeper. So you might want to do a definition card and an example card for a few concepts would be beneficial. Anyway, the first thing you need to do is write the definition from the text. Um, if you don't understand any of the words in the text, then you would do something like this that's down here. Put illicit. You've never heard of that before. You're not going to understand it if you don't know what that word is. And so you would define that. If the definition doesn't include any words you're not familiar with, you don't have to have that down there. The other thing you want to do is if the definition doesn't make sense to you, you need to write your own definition. So if it doesn't make sense what it's saying in the textbook, write your own. If the textbook makes sense, which I think in most cases for the memory it will, the next thing that you need to do is you need to identify the key terms. So in this one, there are 4 key terms, and you would number them first and then underline them, potentially in different colors. So maybe underline number 1 in red and so on and so forth. But this is what was missing on a lot of yours. You didn't like identify the main concepts there. So that's one thing that you need to do is number and underline. So make sure that you do that. And then what you'll do on the front is, of course, have the term. And then this is the number, and this would refer to, so this was on a different card they had, but this would refer to the number of key elements. So if you were doing that for classical conditioning, which is what this one is. If you were doing that for classical conditioning, you would have 4. And then another key thing is that you're telling yourself this is the definition card. So the term, the number of key elements, and whether it's a definition or an example card. On your example cards, obviously, you'll have the term, but then it will say example instead of saying definition. You can, if you can fit 2 examples on there. You could have examples from the text and your own examples. If your card is too small and you can't fit both on there, you can have one card that's called example and one card that's called my example, and then put your example on the back. So the example card's taking you a step further. Here's on the back side of the example card, you would have the example from the textbook or from a quiz, anywhere you found an example that was made for you that you didn't create. Then the next thing you're going to do is match the key elements from your definition card. So if you have 3 key elements, you will identify those 3 key elements. Um, then you'll underline those elements on both cards. Um, and I think I have an example down here. And you might have one that also has um, your own example and identify it. But here, I think this is very helpful. This is showing you the back of the definition card for a specific concept. In this case, it's conditioned stimulus, and then the back of the example card. So in the example card, they're giving you an example that was given. In this case, since it doesn't say my example, it would be an example from the textbook. And they're underlining and identifying which each part is. So the dentist chair was the neutral stimulus, part 1. Um, Sheila experienced much pain from the dentist drill. That's part 2. It's associating with the unconditioned stimulus. And then the last part is what was the conditioned response? It was the fear in Sheila. So make sure that if you use an example, you do underline and identify the key elements, again, to relate directly back to your definition card. So again, if you have room, you could put your own example down below. And again, with your own example, you would identify the 3 key elements, in this case, since there are 3. Then the next thing is I have created a Quizlet account for our class. So if you would like to create or upload your cards to the Quizlet account, it would be very beneficial because then you could see the cards from the entire class. Some of you did use the Quizlet. Didn't really, on the Quizlet, I didn't see a whole lot that had the underlining and the numbering, which I would really like to see. The underlining and the numbering are really important because they're taking you beyond just maintenance rehearsal. Maintenance rehearsal would be just reading and reading and reading and repeating the definition. This is taking you to elaborative. It's making you stop and think about how many key elements are there, what key elements are they, and then relating those key elements to examples. It's a much deeper level of processing. So the Quizlet is a great tool. I have created, as I said, an account for our class. So I would love it if you would go into Quizlet and upload your cards. If you don't want to, then those cards should have been uploaded to the discussion. And you could just take a picture and upload. But it would be great if you would go in there. Another thing that I've had a few questions on from the first discussion is what to do with the results from the tutorial quiz. I need you to either email them to me or to attach them to your post. So I've seen, I don't know, about half of you have sent me the results. I need the rest of those too, please. So make sure you either send those to me or attach them to your post. And then I'm noticing, I'm looking at some of your original replies to posts. I mean, your replies to original posts. And many of you are just addressing the first part, the introduction part, without really going into detail about parts 2, 3, and 4 of the discussion. So in your reply to a classmate's original post, please, and this is what's listed on the discussion, make sure to address all 4 parts of the post. What do you have in common? What did you find interesting about the introduction? So this is where you're getting to know the person. Then I need you to look at their getting started quiz. Were all the questions answered accurately? Where did you disagree or agree? Then I want you to look at their flashcards. How can you help improve the flashcards that he or she has made? If they didn't underline, you might suggest where they underline. You might say, I think there are three key concepts in this, while you think there are 2. So on, so forth. The other thing that I noticed was kind of missing in some of your original posts, and I would like you to make sure you comment on in your responses, is how do these exercises, I mean, the purpose of this was to take some of the concepts you learned in the text and actually apply them. So do you agree with how these exercises relate to memory material? How does it relate to maintenance versus elaborative rehearsal? Does it have any, is there a testing effect in there? What other concepts that you have been exposed to relate to these exercises? That's really important too. It's giving you, again, more elaborative rehearsal. So if you agree with what they've said, how can you expand on it? Why is it elaborative rehearsal? If they just said, I think this allows elaborative rehearsal, why is that elaborative rehearsal? Then next, I also want you to look at APA citations. Remember, there's supposed to be at least a minimum of one citation in each one. Please look at your classmates' citations, and they should have in-text citations and a reference at the bottom. So please look at both of those, see whether or not they follow the rules that we've been given, and then you might want to move the discussion forward by asking additional questions, seeking clarification. Um, what did you not understand in their post, and so on and so forth. So, and remember, these have to be a minimum of 250 words. So I've seen a lot of posts that were, just a sentence or two sentences and only relating to the personal information that was given. So make sure that you address three, the other three criteria listed on the discussion. Okay, I think that's it. Please let me know if you have additional questions. I'd be happy to help. But please, if you did not, and this is the first week, so I'm going to give a little leeway. So if you didn't do everything the way it's supposed to be done, please go back into your original post and correct. Mainly it was the note cards. Oh, and the other thing that I noticed too is several of you were not doing additional exercises on Launchpad. So when you get into Launchpad, you were supposed to do the learning curve quiz and then look at your study guide that's listed, areas of additional resources after you take the learning curve quiz, and use a couple of those. You could use the Psych Sims, you could use the flashcards that were there and talk about those flashcards in comparison to the ones that you learned about, so on, so on, so forth. So if you have questions, please, please, please contact me. Otherwise, ask your classmates. Oh, and one question I noticed that no one got right is if you have additional questions, you go down to the other forum. There's two discussion boards, and one is for our required discussions, and one is basically to ask questions. And that way you could ask questions to the entire class. So please let me know if you have any questions. I hope this helps clarify. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye.